This three-time Grammy winner with roots in New Orleans now calls North Carolina home. Meet the masterful and complex Branford Marsalis, next on Black Issues Forum.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.
Hello and welcome to Black Issues Forum. I'm Natalie Bullock Brown. Branford Marsalis is already well known as a masterful world-class jazz musician, but he's so much more. Educator, humanitarian, family man, and most recently, recipient of North Carolina's top civilian honor, the North Carolina Award. For the past 10 years, he's called Durham home, and today we'll talk about his recording career and what has earned him this distinction in our state. But first, here's a brief introduction on today's special guest, Branford Marsalis.
A member of the Marsalis music dynasty that includes patriarch Ellis Marsalis on piano and brothers Wynton on trumpet, Delfeo on trombone, and Jason on the drums, Branford Marsalis is an accomplished musician unto his own. Together with his orchestra and instrument of choice, a smooth, supple saxophone, Branford has mapped a musical journey dotted with Grammy Awards, a Tony Award nomination, and solo performances with acclaimed classical music orchestras like the North Carolina Symphony. Branford's deep soul and compassion have transcended music, as many witnessed through his philanthropy building the New Orleans Habitat Musicians Village after Hurricane Katrina. In his most recent musical contribution, he's joined by pianist Joey Calderazzo, bassist Eric Rivas, and drummer Justin Faulkner. Scheduled for release on CD, digitally, and on high-definition vinyl, the album features a collection of original compositions, a Thelonious Monk classic, and a 1930s standard that deliver the full Branford and plenty of what's made him another gem in the Marsalis music dynasty.
It is with great honor that I welcome today's guest, Branford Marsalis. Welcome to Black Issues Forum.
Pleasure to be here, Nat.
It's good to have you. Let's start off by getting a little background on what brought you to this area. Why did you move to Durham, and what's kept you here?
It has great economic diversity. And other than being in New Orleans, I said Durham looks like a really great place to be, a city that knows what it is, a city where the people who live there are proud to be from there, to the point of irritation. Like Pittsburgh, like Cleveland, Chicago people, they love being from Chicago. Durhamites are always talking about the Bull City, baby. That's right, I live in Durham.
Right.
Durham.
Right.
And New Orleans is the same way. So I like being in a city that has that kind of self-assured identity.
So tell us, what about your time in Durham has informed your latest recording, Songs of Mirth and Melancholy?
Is that good? It's these things don't really. It's kind of like life. There are times when someone can actually point to a specific event that forms your life or transforms your life for better or for worse. But I think most times it's little small events that transform your life over time.
Right.
People who have strong views about one thing over time, suddenly their views begin to amend. I was somewhere and a musician was talking. Oh, the North Carolina Symphony had a great concert, kids concert called Green Eggs and Ham. This composer came in and he was talking about Mozart, and he said to the children something about the notes that Mozart chose. This is why he chose these notes. And I turned to the general manager, Scott Freck, And I said, these are the sounds he chose, not the notes he chose, because notes don't actually exist. And Scott gave me that look like, here you are being a contrarian again. And I said, afterwards, I said, no, man, it's a very important discussion, because when I teach music students, it takes a long time to get them to a point, because they've been inundated with that idea that notes exist, when in fact, it's an invisible construct. I mean, it helps our life. It makes things easier. It's kind of like words. Mm-hmm. Society existed before words. If words were to disappear, society would still exist, and we would still have conversation. There would be many great ideas that would be lost. That would be the great tragedy of it, but society would exist. And when I can get musicians to think in terms of sound, as opposed to those technical specificities that are mostly just largely man invented by mankind, it changes how you hear the music, and that's the thing that we do.
And so talk about what you've been doing in the education arena in this area. You're teaching at
North Carolina Central.
And have you also taught at other schools?
I have. I taught at Michigan State. I taught at San Francisco State. I think that's it.
And what do you enjoy about higher ed, about teaching on that level?
Just fighting with the kids. I enjoy challenging them. A lot of them are not used to it. They haven't been challenged, and they resent it at first. But then there's that moment when the light bulb goes off in their heads and they get it, and then I kind of cry. I cry, and then they get even more confused about me. But when you can pressure somebody to change their point of view, and they have to change it. You can't change it for them.
Absolutely.
But you just constantly asking them questions, and it's amazing how, if there's anything that I want to do at Central, is just it's focus on the education side, because these kids come in and their music education is so bad when they come to school that it's shocking. I mean, I could tell you just unbelievable stories, but I guess the general sense of it is that you have kids who come in who have never heard a classical record, never heard a jazz record, and they come in and they join the jazz program,
wow,
having never heard a jazz record. So the first month is just like a horror show for them, because they're hearing these sounds assaulting their ears. They don't know what it is. And my thing is, performers find their way. I'm not trying to develop performers. I'm trying to develop thinkers. And my dream would be to have 15 or 20 kids who become teachers in North Carolina. And then at some point, years from now, I'll have a student who come in and say, yeah, well, my band director, and it's one of our students, played this record for me, and I'd never heard this before, and this is what I want to do, because there are potentially a lot of great jazz players out there. They just don't have any access, and access is the key to everything.
Let's talk about the classical work that you've been doing, sounds like for quite a few years. But I want to set it up like this, because you've done a little bit of everything. You've played with Sting, you played in an R&B band when you were younger, you've played with with Bruce Hornsby.
Dave Matthews Band.
And Dave Matthews.
Public Enemy.
Right, you've done hip hop, and of course you're a jazz musician. So talk about your work with some of the great orchestras of our country, but also talk about what draws you to a musical project in general, because you don't seem to be daunted by genre.
I didn't grow up with the idea of genre. Again, it's kind of like the conversation about notes. Genres don't really exist. Human beings, for whatever the reason, we feel comfort in categorization. I think probably because it allows us to not have to think too much.
What do you mean by that?
You have people who say, I like hip hop. So they already know what that is. And when you watch the reaction in their face when they hear a style of music when they don't know what it is, for every 25 have an instant opinion about it. And it's never a good opinion, because it is not what they know. They're not even curious. But then everybody has a curiosity. So as the brain starts to pique their curiosity, they choose to suppress that because it will probably force them, like I said earlier, it'll force them to change their point of view, to change we all live in these narrow worlds that we consider large and expansive. And then something occurs that is about to expand your world, and you say, no, I have my world right here. I don't need you coming in here and messing up what I know, because then that's going to change everything that I think.
Right.
But then there are those people who are just like, man, there's so much I don't know. Let's go get some of this. Let's go get some of that. Let's go find out about this. And I always had that kind of curiosity, and I was lucky enough to live in a city where it embraced that ideal.
Let me ask you something along those lines, because I've been hearing a lot about some things that the trumpeter Nicholas Payton has been saying about jazz and calling jazz Black American music instead of jazz.
Yeah.
And so there's sort of an age-old debate about, well, why don't Black people support jazz? And it seems, and I want to know from you, does it have to do with this categorization, you stay on that side, I don't understand this music, so I can't embrace it? What is it about?
I was asked this question. It's very funny for an article. And it's really funny because when I gave him the answer, he didn't include the question. He didn't include it in the article. When you play art music, you make a decision, I'm going to play for the people who like it. I don't care if they're green, because there's just not enough of them to be worried about what color they are. Mm-hmm. And when Nicholas got into this whole thing and the people who side with him, I was reading one of the things. At first, I didn't even know anything about it. And people started asking me, I was like, because I don't really spend a lot of time on Facebook. So when I read it, I told a musician friend of mine, so what do you think about that? I said, well, it's not really a discussion about music. It's a discussion about territory. And all I want to talk about in the music world is music. So what do you mean territory? I said, basically, he's inventing this new category. He's basically saying, like, jazz is Black American music, and because I'm Black, therefore, I am a great jazz musician.
Is that what he's saying? Or is he saying that if it's Black American music, then by default, Black people should support it?
No, I didn't read that he was saying they should support it. He was basically saying that, his point of view is superior to the other points of view.
Okay.
And he doesn't use any musical terms to defend it. Because then you read it, and then he's kind of attacking jazz writers and attacking this guy and attacking that guy and making comparisons between Mulgrew Miller and Brad Mehldau, whom most of the audience won't know who they are. Mm-hmm. So I really didn't want to try to name names because I know they will say, who are these people? Well, Google it, folks. Google
jazz
it.
Pianists.
Google it.
Right.
So the whole discussion is about territory, and then the people who chime in and side with him is that, because if we really want to get down to it, jazz is Black American music. It was a music that was essentially invented by Africans while playing European instruments. And because of segregation, it is a music that is an African American perspective on people who watched people play John Philip Sousa military marches. Mm-hmm. So, because if it was all about Africa, then the Sudanese would be the swingingest cats on the planet. They're certainly the blackest. And you go to Africa, I don't hear any jazz in Africa. So clearly there's more to it than just Africa.
Right.
And African American means a lot of things.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason that a lot of us don't look like we're from Senegal anymore. So at that point, to me, what blackness is in America is more, it's a cultural identity.
Let's talk about the award you just won, the North Carolina Award. How did it feel to win that? And what are you going to do with that experience? What does that do for you?
Yeah, I'm not really an awards guy. I was honored. I got to meet Vala Simpson, who's a young man. He's not young. He's 90 years old, 93, who builds what he calls whirly gigs out near Wilson, North Carolina. And he was one of the funniest, most generous, kind people that I've ever met. And that's what I took from it. And we're eventually going to get the kids out to go watch his whirly gig farm, because the city of Wilson has kind of embraced him, and they're putting a lot of his artwork into the city proper. But there's still a few things left. And one of the great things he said was, I just made stuff that I like. And one day some guy showed up and told me it was art. And I think that's the best description of what this is. It's the best description. I don't play jazz because I want to play art. it happens to be art, but one day I heard it and said, man, I want to do that.
What was it like composing for Broadway and then being nominated for a Tony? That's amazing.
Well, we're back to that award stuff again.
You're not
the
an
answer's
award.
the same. But that was a great experience. Kenny Leon, who's the director, asked me to do it. And I just kind of used my regular process. I bought the play, read the play several times. I was familiar with the play. I'd seen it. And I kind of wrote based on how his writing affects me emotionally. And Kenny said, no, man, that's not going to work. You got to come see the actors. It's not going to work that way. And my schedule was crammed. And I found one day, I said, all right, fine. I'll come in on this day. I'll fly in, watch it, and then fly out. And by the time they were done, Denzel Washington and Viola Davis, I was weeping at the table.
Wow.
And I said, okay, man, you're right. I needed to see it because I wrote the music based on my emotional experience with the play, not theirs. And suddenly when I saw their emotional experience, I had to rewrite 80% of it to try to capture what I felt was what they were trying to convey. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Viola was, wow. And Denzel, it was fantastic.
Was it a given since you come from the great Marsalis clan, your dad is a musician, just about everybody is in your family, all your brothers just about are musicians. Was it a given that you were going to play jazz? And what did your dad do to nurture you guys musically?
It was a given that I wasn't going to play jazz. No one thought I was going to play.
Really?
I played R&B music when I was a kid.
But wasn't your dad playing jazz records at home?
So? That was his music.
Oh, not yours.
It had nothing to do with me. He played them, and then when his hour was up, then I started playing mine. And it was Earth, Wind & Fire and the Isley Brothers and Funkadelic and Led Zeppelin and
I like that.
King Crimson, Hendrix. That was my stuff. That was my stuff. And then I turned 19 and something kind of clicked where I got to this place. I was playing a gig with this singer, William Bell. He had a big hit called Trying to Love 2 in the 70s. And I started listening to music and it started to become simpler and simpler to play, simpler and simpler to hear, and my brain just said, well, I need something else. I can't envision doing this for a career. Because I think that if you're not the singer/songwriter, playing that stuff gets pretty droll after a while. And I had to find something else. And my roommate at the time was Marvin Smitty Smith, who was the drummer on The Tonight Show when Kevin Eubanks took over. And he played this Miles Davis record, Nefertiti, and that was it for me. I heard that record and said, oh, man. So jazz isn't just some stodgy old music from the 40s. It's this other thing. And that was the thing. I said, okay, I'm in.
Can I tell you something? When I was in college, I was 18, and somebody played Renaissance Man for me. Same experience. Renaissance Man, viewers, is an album that Branford Marsalis did back in 1990.
Oh, no, that record's called Renaissance.
Renaissance, I'm so
sorry. Because I never thought of myself as a Renaissance man, but thank you.
Renaissance,
thank you,
yeah,
I appreciate that.
But it did the same
well,
thing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I got one more burning question to ask you. Given all of the different music that you enjoy, what's on your iPod right now?
Man, a lot of stuff is on my iPod.
What are you listening to?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Right now, at this moment, mostly Renaissance music.
Interesting.
16th, 17th century. Italian composer named Barbara Strozzi. And Monteverdi madrigals. And I just bought this record of music from the 14th century, English music from the 14th century by the Folger Consort. And it's the name of the record is Music in the Time of Shakespeare.
Okay, so what is this about? What are we doing listening to all of this?
Music is a weird thing. You can't have that, like I said, the cost-benefit analysis. You can't, because I have no idea how this will affect how I hear music in the long run. But I just get to a place where I need to find something else to listen to other than the stuff I'd been listening to, because my brain kind of says, okay, well, that's enough of that. You got anything else? I went through my hip hop phase and my R&B phase and my rock and roll phase. And I tend, if I'm going to revisit music, I usually revisit music that is more complex in nature, because the stuff that's not complex in nature, I can't remember the last time I put on an old R&B record from my teenage years and heard something new in them, because I listened to them so exhaustively that it's not and it's a much simpler bass player playing the same line over and over again, drummer playing the same beat over and over again, guitar player playing the same part over and over again. There's not any hidden gems. Wow, I never heard that before. I remember the first time I was re-listening to a Miles Davis record. The song was Old Folks. I guess Someday My Prince Will Come is the record, and he plays Old Folks. And he plays the A section of the melody, and right before he gets to the B section, he leans in the chair and the chair creaks. And I was so excited because I hadn't heard it. I'd been listening to the record for a lot of years and never heard the chair creak. Recordings are funny because when you listen to music, it's disassociated, because the sound is coming at you and you like it, you sing along to it, or you listen to it, but you never have the visualization that people are actually in a room doing it.
Right.
It's just this magic thing. You hit the box and you press the button and sound comes out. Oh, this is amazing. But when you hear a chair creak, suddenly you realize there is a human in a room. And suddenly the microphone, where it is, how okay, now I know he's sitting, he's not standing. It's like the whole thing changes. And I listened to that record hundreds of times and had never thought about that. So there are also records that when I hear them and hear parts that I didn't hear before. And that's usually classical music, because it's so involved and so complicated and there's so much going on that I listen the traditional American way. I learned the melody line and the bass line and all the stuff in the middle with some of the better composers. There's a lot of stuff in the middle, and it takes a while for my brain to kind of wrap its head around what that is. So whenever I do go back to listen to music that I'd heard before, it's usually that stuff, because I'm just trying to make myself a better musician and give myself more information with which to use in my own writing and my own conceptualization of the music we're doing.
Okay. Thank you very much, Branford, for being with us. We really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to be with us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Now, let's take a look at Branford Marsalis from a recent performance at the Duke Reynolds Industries Theater in Durham. And for more information about today's discussion with Branford Marsalis, visit us online at unctv.org/BIF. You'll find links to email us your comments and join us as fans of BIF on Facebook. Or you can call us on the BIF line at 919-549-7167. Be sure to meet us right back here each Sunday afternoon at 4:30. For Black Issues Forum, I'm Natalie Bullock Brown, reminding you to be encouraged no matter what. Peace and blessings. Tell us how your life in Durham fed into your latest recording, Songs of Myrrh, and oh my gosh, I forgot the...
Songs of Mirth and Melancholy.
Thank you.
Come
I was
on,
going to say
woman, get it
melancholy.
together.
I'm sorry.
Come on now.
Goodness, sorry. Because I
No,
messed
no, you
it up.
ain't. No, you leave that in. This is like a performance.
They're going to cut it out.
Television. I was just. Oh, wait a second. Sorry. Damn it.
Cell phone.
Sorry, guys. See, I would leave that in.
We're
But
going
anyway,
to. We're going to.
No, you're not.
Yes, we are.
Oh, you are really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay, fine.
Seriously.
Well, why is the red light off?
It's on.
No, it was off. I
It
just
was
saw.
off?
I synced it.
You synced it?
I synced it. It was off.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.